The marketplace was loud, hot, and cruel. Voices shouted from every side, echoing between tall alien buildings made of black stone. Chains rattled as slaves were pushed forward one by one. Strange creatures of every shape and size shouted bids. Raising their claws, their hands, their tentacles, one by one the slaves were sold. Strong ones went first. Tall, muscular bodies brought high prices. Fighters, workers, and skilled slaves were dragged away by their new masters. The crowd laughed and argued, fighting to pay more. But in the corner of the market, one cage stayed untouched. Inside sat a thin figure, hunched over, silent. His skin was pale, his eyes empty, and his body looked weak. He did not speak. He did not move. To the crowd, he looked useless. To the traders, he was nothing but worthless trash. Hours passed, and the crowd thinned. The last buyers came and left. The cages were empty, except one. Only the silent slave remained. The auctioneer, a fat alien with 6 eyes, grew angry. No one wants him. The auctioneer shouted, not even for half price. Not even for scraps. The crowd laughed. He is weak. He will die in days. Why waste credits on bones? The auctioneer slammed his staff against the ground. Worthless. A curse on this one. He is the last, and no one wants him. But then, a new sound broke the silence. The soft calm. Sound of footsteps. From the edge of the market, a stranger stepped forward. His clothes were simple. His face was strange compared to the aliens. He looked different. Too different. Some creatures in the crowd whispered and hissed. A human. Humans were rare here. Most aliens thought humans were weak, fragile, and foolish. Yet here he was, walking with quiet confidence through the jeering crowd. The auctioneer narrowed his 6 eyes. And what do you want, human? The man looked at the cage. He saw the silent slave sitting in the dark, thin and broken. Eyes half closed like someone waiting for death. I'll take him, the human said. The crowd erupted in laughter. You'll waste your credits. Why buy garbage? Humans are idiots? The auctioneer blinked, surprised. This one? He is worthless. He cannot fight. He cannot work. He is nothing. The human smiled faintly. I will decide his worth. The auctioneer shrugged. Fine. Pay and take him. But do not bring him back when he dies in your hands. The human handed over the credits without hesitation. The cage opened with a rusty creak. The guards pulled the weak slave out and pushed him forward. He stumbled, almost falling, but the human caught him before he hit the ground. The crowd booed and laughed again. Look, he cannot even walk. Pathetic. Human, you are a fool. But the human did not answer them. He simply placed a steady hand on the slave's shoulder and guided him away from the marketplace. As they walked through the busy streets, the slave finally whispered, his voice cracked and dry. Why? Why me? Why take me? The human did not answer right away. He looked at the alien stars above, shining coldly in the dark sky. Then he said, softly, because I see value where others don't. The slave's empty eyes lifted slightly. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to him without anger, without hate. They kept walking, away from the noise and cruelty of the market. Behind them, the laughter of the aliens grew distant. Yet, even as the sound faded, the words stayed in the slave's mind. Worthless, trash, garbage. But the human's words cut deeper, brighter, like a spark in darkness. I see value. That night, in the shadows of a small camp far from the market, the slave ate real food for the first time in years. His hands trembled as he lifted the bread. He drank clean water, feeling it run down his dry throat. The human sat across from him, calm and quiet, never asking for thanks. The slave looked at him again, still confused, still afraid. "You don't even know me. You don't even know what I am." The human met his eyes. "I don't need to know what you are. I only need to know what you can become." The slave had no answer. He turned away, but deep inside, something moved. A small, fragile feeling he thought he had lost forever. Hope. As the stars burned above, the slave closed his eyes. For the first time, the chains on his heart felt lighter. He did not understand why the human had chosen him. But he knew his life had changed. The night was quiet, but not peaceful. The weak slave sat by the fire, his thin hands still shaking as he ate. He did not look like a fighter. He did not look like someone who mattered. Yet, across the fire, the human watched him with eyes that carried a strange weight, like a man who knew more than he should. The slave felt the human's gaze and finally whispered, "Why me? Why save me? You could have chosen anyone. But you chose the worthless." The human did not answer at first. He looked at the flames as if searching for something hidden inside them. Then, with a calm voice, he said, "Sometimes the galaxy hides treasure in the dust. I only picked up what others threw away." The slave frowned. Treasure? Him? It made no sense. He wanted to ask more, but his body was too weak, his eyelids heavy. Soon, he drifted into uneasy sleep, but the human did not sleep. When the fire burned low, he quietly pulled out a small device from inside his coat. It was smooth, glowing faintly blue, with symbols no alien in the market would recognize. He raised it close to his mouth and whispered, "This is Agent Kieran, reporting. I have the target. He looks broken, but the scans are correct. The energy is inside him. I will protect him until he awakens." Static crackled. Then a voice answered from the device, cold and distant. "Good. But be careful. If others find out, every hunter in the sector will chase you. Do not let them know what he carries." Kieran the human closed the device and looked at the sleeping slave again. His expression softened, almost sad. "They call you worthless," he murmured, "but you may be the most valuable being in this galaxy." Morning came. The slave woke to find food already prepared. The human was packing supplies, ready to move. "Where are we going?" the slave asked, his voice still rough. "Far from here," Kieran said simply. "This place is not safe for you." The slave followed, weak but curious. Every step raised more questions. Why would a human help him? Why risk so much? Still, something inside told him not to run. By nightfall, they reached a canyon filled with glowing stones. The air was heavy, humming softly as if alive. The slave touched one stone and felt a strange pulse move through his skin. He pulled his hand back in fear. "What is this place?" he whispered. The human's eyes narrowed. "A place of memory. Long ago, your people lived here. My people." The slave frowned. "I don't even know who they are." "You will," the human said. "But first, you must trust me." The slave wanted to protest, to ask more. But before he could speak, a sharp sound echoed through the canyon. Metal boots on stone. Hunters' dark shapes appeared at the canyon's edge, carrying weapons that glowed red. Their leader, a tall alien with spiked armor, raised his voice. "Human, hand over the worthless one. He belongs to the masters. You cannot hide him." The slave's heart pounded. He felt his legs weaken. He was useless. He knew he was useless. But the human stepped in front of him, calm, unshaken. "He doesn't belong to you," Kieran said firmly. The hunters laughed. "Do you plan to fight us? One human against 10 hunters. You are a fool." But the human only smiled. "I've been called worse. The fight was sudden and fierce. The hunters rushed forward, their weapons slashing the air with red light. The human moved quickly, faster than the slave thought possible. He dodged, blocked, and struck with skill that seemed almost impossible for a normal man. Still, there were too many. A strike cut across his arm. Another knocked him back. The hunters closed in. The slave watched in terror, guilt burning inside him. This human had saved him, fed him, defended him, and now he was about to die because of it. "No," the slave whispered. "Not again. Not for me." Something inside him stirred, deep and ancient. His body trembled. His eyes burned. The air around him began to shift, glowing faintly. The hunters froze. "What is this?" The slave's thin, weak frame suddenly released. A wave of energy, invisible yet powerful. The canyon shook. Stones cracked. The hunters were thrown back as if struck by an unseen force. The human shielded his eyes, but did not look surprised. Instead, he smiled. "It's beginning," he whispered. When the glow faded, the hunters were gone, either dead or fleeing. The slave collapsed, gasping, unable to understand what had just happened. His whole body shook, but not from weakness. This was something else, something frightening. What did I do?" He whispered. The human knelt beside him. His voice was calm but serious. "You used what they fear, the power inside you. The reason they call you worthless is because they are afraid of you." The slave stared at him, eyes wide. "You knew, all along." The human nodded slowly. "Yes, that's why I bought you. That's why I'll protect you. Because you are not worthless. You are the key." The slave wanted to deny it, to say the human was wrong. But the memory of the hunters flying through the air was too real. He had felt the power. He had seen it. For the first time, he realized something terrifying. The human had not saved him out of pity. He had saved him because the galaxy feared what he could become. The ground was still shaking from the blast of power. Dust floated in the air, glowing in the moonlight. The weak slave lay on the stone floor, his chest rising and falling as if he had run 1,000 miles. His body felt heavy, yet inside him a strange fire burned. Kieran, the human, stood over him. His arm was bleeding, but his face was calm. He placed a hand on the slave's shoulder. "You see now," he said softly. "You are not weak. You are not worthless. The power is inside you." The slave shook his head, frightened. "No, I can't control it. I didn't mean to. I didn't even know what I was doing." Kieran's voice was steady. "That's why they fear you. That's why they will keep coming. And that's why you must learn." Far above the canyon, hidden in the clouds, a small ship hovered. Inside, the surviving hunters sent a message. "Across the stars, the human has the slave. He has awakened. Send reinforcements." The galaxy had heard the signal. The chase had begun by dawn. Kieran and the slave were on the move. The canyon was far behind them, but the air felt tense, dangerous. Every sound made the slave jump, every shadow felt like an enemy. "Where are we going?" the slave asked. His voice still weak. Kieran did not look back. "Somewhere safe, somewhere they cannot reach us." The slave almost laughed. Safe. Now that hunters had seen his power, nowhere was safe. But he followed anyway. Hours later, the desert opened into a vast scrapyard. Rusted ships lay broken like the skeletons of giant beasts. Towers of metal rose high, sharp and dangerous. "This place," the slave whispered. "It smells of death." Kieran nodded. "Which is why they will not search here. Too many memories. Too many bones." They hid inside the hollow body of an old warship. The metal walls were cold, the air heavy. With dust, the slave sat in the corner, hugging his knees. "Why do they want me?" he asked. "If I'm truly worthless, why chase me?" Kieran looked at him with serious eyes. "Because you are not worthless. You are the last of something old, a bloodline that carried power beyond armies. Long ago, your kind were hunted, until only fragments remained. You are one of those fragments, and if you rise, the galaxy will change." The slave felt his stomach twist. "So, I am a weapon." "No," Kieran said firmly. "Not a weapon, a choice. You decide what you become." But before the slave could answer, a sound ripped through the scrapyard. Engines, loud, heavy, coming closer. Kieran's face hardened. "They found us." The slave's heart raced. He crawled to the window of the broken ship and looked outside. Dozens of hunters spread across the junkyard, their armor glowing red in the dust. Between them walked something larger machine. With legs like a spider, its weapons pointing in every direction. "Kieran," the slave whispered, his voice shaking. "There are too many." The human pulled out a small blaster, loading it with calm hands. "Then we run." The scrapyard exploded into chaos. The hunters stormed in, firing beams of red light. Metal towers fell, crashing to the ground with deafening sound. Kieran grabbed the slave's arm and pulled him through the wreckage. "Faster!" he shouted. The slave stumbled, almost falling, but somehow kept moving. The machine's legs struck the ground behind them, each step shaking the earth. They turned down a narrow path between walls of rusted metal. The hunters were close, their shouts echoing. "Don't look back," Kieran ordered. But the slave did look back, and what he saw froze his blood. The machine's glowing eyes locked on him, and in that moment, he knew it wanted him, not Kieran. The others could die, but he was the prize. A beam fired. The path exploded. The slave was thrown against the ground, dust filling his lungs. He coughed, tried to stand, but his legs were shaking. Kieran pulled him up again. "You can do this. Keep going." The slave's eyes burned. "I can't. I'm too weak." Kieran's voice was hard. "No, that's what they told you. But I see what you are. You can run. You can fight. Believe it." Something inside the slave shifted. He clenched his fists, his body trembling. The fire inside him stirred again, wild and dangerous. He closed his eyes, the world fell silent, and then light. The scrapyard erupted. The slave's body glowed, and a shockwave burst outward. Hunters were thrown back like toys. The great machine stumbled, its legs collapsing as sparks flew. Kieran shielded his face, but he did not move away. He only watched as the slave, thin and broken, stood in the middle of the storm like a living sun. When the light faded, the hunters lay scattered, groaning in pain. The machine was silent, smoke rising from its ruined body. The slave fell to his knees, gasping for air. His whole body shook with exhaustion. Kieran knelt beside him. "You see now? You are more than they told you." The slave's voice was almost a whisper. "But if I am not worthless, then what am I?" Kieran's eyes darkened. That is the question the galaxy fears most, and we are running out of time to answer it. The scrapyard was silent now. Smoke rose from broken machines, and the bodies of hunters lay scattered like shadows of defeat. The thin slave sat on the ground, his chest heaving, his hands trembling. He could still feel the fire inside him, wild and frightening, as if something ancient had awakened. Kieran, the human, knelt beside him. His voice was calm but firm. "You cannot run from it anymore. You felt it. The power is real." The slave shook his head. "I don't understand. I don't even know who I am. I was always told I was worthless, weak, nothing. And now, this? What am I? Kieran looked at him for a long time before answering. You are the last spark of a forgotten race. A race the galaxy feared so much, they erased its name from history. The slave's eyes widened. A race, you mean? I'm not alone. You. We're never alone, Kieran said. Long ago, your people ruled with strength, not with armies, but with power of the mind and soul. They could bend energy, shape matter, even change the fate of battles with a single thought. They were more than flesh and bone. They were living stars. The slave's heart pounded. His hands shook as he whispered, "And now I am the last." Kieran nodded slowly. The last who still carries the blood. That is why they call you worthless, because if the galaxy remembers what you are, everything will change. The masters, the hunters, the empires, they all fear you. A fear is why they try to break you. The slave looked down at his hands. Remembering the light, the storm of energy that had thrown the hunters aside. I don't want this, he muttered. I never asked for it. I never wanted to be dangerous. Kieran's voice was steady. Danger is not in the power. Danger is in how it is used. That is why I am here, to guide you, to make sure you do not fall into their hands. The slave's eyes narrowed. But why you? Why risk your life for me? What do humans gain from this? For the first time, Kieran looked away. His jaw tightened. Because I owe your kind a debt. Long ago, when my people were weak, one of yours saved us. Without them, humans would not have survived. Now I carry that duty. The slave's breath caught. So you protect me, because of an old debt. Kieran's gaze returned to him. Not only that, because I believe you are more than a weapon. More than a tool. You are a choice for the galaxy's future, and I will not let them chain you again. Before the slave could speak, the air around them shifted. The glowing stones of the scrapyard's edge pulsed faintly, humming in rhythm with his heartbeat. He touched one stone, and it lit brighter under his hand. Kieran's eyes narrowed. It recognizes you. Recognizes me. These stones, they are memory crystals. Fragments of your people's world. They carry echoes of their power. And they answer only to blood. The slave's body shivered as the stone glowed brighter, its light seeping into his skin. Suddenly, images filled his mind, visions of tall figures wrapped in light standing over alien worlds. Their voices were deep and endless, carrying both kindness and terror. He saw ships burning, planets screaming, and finally chains fire. Silence. He gasped and pulled his hand away. I saw them, my people. They were strong, but they were destroyed. Kieran nodded. Yes, because strength always draws fear, and fear brings war. They called your race gods, and then demons, until nothing remained but shadows. The slave's voice cracked. And now I carry that shadow. No, Kieran said firmly. You carry their hope. A chance to prove they were more than monsters. That is why you must live. But even as he spoke, the ground trembled. The memory crystals dimmed. From the darkness beyond the scrapyard, shapes moved again. The slave's stomach dropped. More. Hunter's Kieran's hand went to his weapon. His face was grim. Not hunters. Worse. Out of the mist came armored figures taller than men, their armor black as night, their weapons humming with power. Unlike the hunters, they did not shout or laugh. They moved in silence, cold and precise. The slave's heart raced. Who are they? The Inquisitors, Kieran said. His voice was low, almost a whisper. The galaxy's final answer to your kind. They do not capture, they erase. The slave's breath caught. Fear gripped him deeper than before. These were not ordinary hunters, they were executioners. Kieran stepped in front of him, raising his weapon. "Stay behind me, no matter what happens. Don't lose control. If you unleash the power now, they will know. They will never stop coming." The slave's eyes burned. "But if I don't use it, we'll die." Kieran gave a grim smile. "Then, we must find another way." The Inquisitors spread out, surrounding them. Their leader raised a long blade that glowed with black light. His voice was deep, hollow. "Human, hand over the last remnant. End this quietly, and your death will be fast." Kieran's grip tightened on his weapon. "He is not yours." The leader tilted his head. The Inquisitors had surrounded them, but by some miracle, Kieran and the slave escaped. Through smoke, fire, and falling stone, they fled into the night. The chase still echoed in their hearts, every step carrying the weight of death by dawn. They found a cave in the cliffs above the desert. Sighed, shadows swallowed them. Only a small flame lit their faces. The slave sat in silence, his body trembling. He could still feel the fire inside him, begging to burst out. His hands shook as if they belonged to someone else. Kieran sat across from him, calm but bruised. His voice was low. "You did well back there. You didn't let the power consume." "You?" The slave laughed bitterly. "Did well. I almost lost control. I almost destroyed everything. You don't understand I'm dangerous. I should never have left that cage." Kieran's eyes stayed steady. "I understand more than you think. I've seen power destroy. I've seen fear turn good men into monsters. But I've also seen strength save lives. You are not dangerous because of what you are. You are dangerous only if you stop choosing who to be." The words echoed, but the slave shook his head. "You risk everything for me. For what? A weapon you can use. Key to some secret." Kieran frowned, his voice heavy. "If you were just a weapon, I would have left you in the market. If you were only a key, I would have handed you to my people. But I didn't, because I believe in something different." "What?" The slave whispered. Kieran leaned forward, his voice soft, almost fragile. "I believe in you." The slave froze. No one had ever said those words to him. Not once. Not when he was a child. Not when he was in chains. Not when he was called worthless. The word believe felt foreign, heavy, almost too much to hold. But trust was not easy. That night, when Kieran finally slept, the slave stayed awake. His eyes followed the flicker of the fire, but his thoughts were a storm. Why should he trust this human? Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and yet this one had risked everything for him. Why was it really belief, or something hidden? Quietly, the slave moved closer. Kieran's pack sat beside him, half open. Inside, he saw the faint glow of the device, the one Kieran whispered into. His hand trembled as he reached for it. But Kieran's eyes opened. "Don't," he said calmly. The slave froze. Caught, Kieran sat up slowly, his gaze sharp but not angry. "If you want answers, ask me. Don't sneak behind my back." The slave's voice cracked. "Then tell me. Tell me the truth. Who do you speak to? What do they want from me?" Kieran was silent for a long time. Then he sighed. "My people sent me. They know what you are. They told me to find you, protect you, and keep you alive until the time comes." The slave's stomach twisted. "So it's true. I'm just a mission." Kieran's voice grew hard. "At first, yes. But missions change. I was sent for a target. Instead, I found a person." The slave turned away, his chest heavy. He wanted to believe those words, but trust was a fragile thing. Chains may break, but their scars remain. The next day, the desert stretched endless. Before them, wind howled across the cliffs, carrying the smell of dust and fire. Kieran walked ahead, his steps steady. The slave followed, his mind torn between doubt and hope. By afternoon, storm clouds gathered. Lightning cracked across the sky. They sheltered under a broken arch of stone, waiting for the storm to pass. Thunder shook the ground. The slave looked at Kieran, his voice trembling. "Why don't you give me up? The Inquisitors would spare you if you handed me to them. Why risk your life?" Kieran turned, lightning flashing across his face. "Because I don't see you as worthless, and because I know what happens when people believe lies about themselves." "What do you mean?" Kieran's eyes grew distant. "When I was a boy, they said I was weak. That I would never survive the training, never become more than a shadow. I believed them for years. Until one man told me different. He said I was more, and he was right." The slave swallowed, his chest tight. Kieran's voice grew softer. "Now it is my turn to tell you what no one else ever has. You are not worthless. You are not trash. You are more than you know. The only question is, will you believe it?" The storm passed, leaving silence. The slave stared at his hands. Again, for the first time, they did not feel like chains. For the first time, he wanted to believe. But trust is not given in one moment. It grows like fire, small, fragile, waiting for air. That night, as they slept under the stars, the slave whispered a word he had never spoken before. "Friend." Kieran, half asleep, opened his eyes. He smiled faintly. "Yes, friend." Word lingered in the air, stronger than chains, sharper than blades. A bond had been born, not perfect, not unbroken, but real, and in the shadows beyond the cliffs. The Inquisitors watched, waiting for their chance to strike. The desert stretched. Behind them, endless and cold. Kieran and the slave had walked for days, hiding from hunters and Inquisitors. Their bond had grown stronger, fragile, but real. The slave had begun to believe in the word friend. But trust is always tested. It happened on the third night. They found shelter in the ruins of an old outpost, its walls broken, its machines long dead. The slave sat by a dim fire while Kieran scouted the shadows. The slave closed his eyes, breathing slowly. For the first time in his life, he felt almost safe. But then footsteps. Heavy, steady. Not Kieran's. He opened his eyes. A figure stepped from the dark. Human. The firelight revealed a tall man in black armor, his face hard, his eyes sharp like knives. He looked at the slave and smiled, but it was not a warm smile, it was cold, knowing. "So it's true," the man said. "The last remnant still breathes." The slave froze, his voice cracked. "Who? You?" Before the man could answer, Kieran appeared, his weapon drawn. His face went pale when he saw the newcomer. "Rian," Kieran said slowly. "I thought you were dead." The man in black chuckled. "Not dead. Just working where you cannot." The slave looked between them, confusion rising like a storm. "You know him?" he asked Kieran. Kieran's jaw tightened. "Yes, he was. Once my brother in service. We trained together." Rian stepped closer, his eyes never leaving the slave. "And I still serve. Unlike you, who has betrayed your own mission." The slave's heart pounded. "Mission?" Rian's voice was sharp as steel. "Kieran was sent to guard you until we could deliver you. That was the order. But he broke it. He thinks you are more than what you are. He thinks you can be saved." Kieran's grip on his weapon tightened. He can be saved. He is not a monster. Rian laughed darkly. "Not a monster. You saw what he did in the scrapyard. You saw the power. That power will burn worlds. He is a threat to every living thing. You should have left him in the cage." The slave's chest felt heavy, his breath sharp. Kieran, is this true? Was I only a mission? Kieran's voice was steady but low. At first, yes. I was sent to find you, protect you. But it changed. I saw more. I saw you. Rion's gaze cut like a blade. Don't believe him. He only protects you because he feels guilty. He is weak with pity. I, at least, will tell you the truth. You are not hope. You are danger. The galaxy does not need you, it needs you gone. The words struck deep. The slave remembered the hunters flying, the machine burning, the stones glowing under his hands. He had seen the destruction. Could Rion be right? Was he truly only a weapon waiting to kill? Tension cracked the air like thunder. Come with me, Rion said, extending his hand. I will take you to safety. I will make sure you never hurt anyone again. That is mercy. The slave stared at the hand. His body trembled. Safety. Mercy? Maybe this was the answer. Maybe this was freedom from fear. But then he looked at Kieran. Kieran's face was not calm. It was raw, desperate. If you go with him, they will chain you again. They will erase you. I am the only one who sees you as more. Please, trust me. The slave's heart tore in two. Both humans wanted him. One promised mercy, the other promised belief. But who spoke truth and who spoke lies? The silence broke with sudden violence. Rion moved first. His blade of black light hissed as it slashed toward Kieran. The cave exploded into chaos. Sparks flew, stone cracked, fire scattered. The two humans clashed with speed and fury. Their movements sharp and practiced brothers in training, now enemies. The slave stumbled back, his body shaking. He could feel the fire inside him begging to rise, begging to break free. His breath came fast. His hands glowed faintly. Stop, he whispered. Please stop. But they did not stop. Kieran blocked, struck, staggered. Rion pressed forward, ruthless, every blow aimed to kill. Choose, Rion shouted at the slave. Choose who you believe, him or the truth. The slave's scream echoed through the cave, and the light inside him burst. The battle froze. Energy rippled across the walls. Stones shook. Fire bent in strange patterns. The two humans stood still, staring at the slave as the glow in his eyes grew brighter. Deeper. I am not worthless, the slave said, his voice filled with power. I am not trash. And I will not be your weapon. The ground cracked under his feet. The glow burst outward, separating the two humans like a storm. When the light faded, Kieran was on one side of the cave, Rion on the other. Both were alive. Both were staring. The slave fell to his knees, gasping. His voice was weak, but clear. No more chains. No more lies. If I must be something, I will decide for myself. Rion's eyes burned with fury. You are a danger. And I will end you, even if he will not. Kieran stepped forward, his weapon ready. Then you will fight me first. The cave was heavy with silence, the fire burning low. The slave sat between them, broken yet rising, caught between two humans, one. Who called him danger? The galaxy had heard the call. From every corner of the stars, ships moved. Hunters came in swarms. Inquisitors marched in silence. Even humans in hidden fleets prepared their weapons. All for one reason. The worthless one had awakened. And he was no longer worthless. The ruined outpost burned behind them. The slave stood between the two humans, Kieran and Rion. Both were scarred, both ready to fight. But the greater storm was above, in the skies. Where engines roared and shadows grew, Kieran looked at the slave, his voice steady. They will all come now. hunters, inquisitors, empires. The galaxy will not let you live. Rion's voice was sharp, 'cause he cannot live. He is not hope, he is fire waiting to burn everything. The slave's chest heaved. His heart pounded. For so long he had been silent, chained, called worthless. Now every voice screamed at him, enemy, savior, curse, hope. He closed his eyes. I will not be what they call me. I will be what I choose. The first ships landed. Hunters poured out, weapons raised. The ground trembled as inquisitors followed, their black blades glowing. The sky burned red with fire from engines. The slave felt fear, but also strength. The fire inside him no longer begged to break free. It waited, calm, like a storm, listening for his command. Kieran stood beside him. Whatever happens, I stand. With you, Rion raised his blade. And I will stop you if you lose control. The slave opened his eyes. Then let it be decided here. The battlefield erupted. Hunters charged, their voices loud with hate. Inquisitors moved like shadows, precise and deadly. Blades clashed, weapons fired. The earth split with fury. Kieran fought with skill and fire. His blaster sharp, his movements fast. Rion struck with cold precision, his blade cutting through hunters and allies alike. And at the center stood the slave, thin, fragile, yet glowing with a light that shook the sky. When the hunters reached him, the glow burst outward. An invisible wall of energy swept across the battlefield, throwing enemies back. But this time, it was not wild, not uncontrolled. His hands moved with focus, his breath steady. He bent the power like a river, shaping it instead of drowning in it. Dots, the crowd froze. Even the inquisitors stopped for a heartbeat, watching the one they once called worthless stand like a living star. But the enemy did not stop. The inquisitor leader raised his black blade high. His voice deep and hollow. You are not hope. You are plague, and plague must be erased. He charged, faster than the eye could follow. His blade struck down toward the slave's chest. Kieran leaped in the way. Steel met light, sparks exploded. Kieran staggered, his arm cut, but he did not fall. Run, Kieran shouted. Save yourself. But the slave did not run. No more. Chains, he said. His voice was calm. His eyes burned bright. No more cages. He raised his hands, and the ground itself obeyed. Stones lifted into the air, glowing with his energy. Lightning split the sky. The battlefield shook with a force not felt for centuries. The hunters screamed. The inquisitors fought harder. Ships above rained fire. But the slave stood tall, his glow brighter than them all. Rion's voice cut through the chaos. Look at him. Look at what he is. This is no savior. This is a world killer. But even as he shouted, something in his eyes shifted. The light reflected in them, not as fear, but as doubt. For the first time, he questioned his own words. The slave turned to him, his voice strong. I will not kill worlds. I will protect them. You see me as danger, but I will show you I am choice. With a single movement, the light burst upward, not outward. Instead of destroying, it shielded. A dome of energy rose across the battlefield, blocking fire from the skies, deflecting weapons, protecting even those who had come to kill him. The galaxy watched as the worthless one chose mercy. The battle slowed, weapons lowered. Even the inquisitors, for all their silence, paused. The glow faded, leaving only the thin slave, kneeling, trembling. But alive. Kieran stood beside him, bloody but smiling. You see, he is not what you fear. Rion lowered his blade, his face torn between anger and awe. The battlefield was quiet. For a moment, the galaxy did not know whether to call him savior or curse. The slave raised his head. His voice was tired, but clear. Once you called me worthless, now you see me. I am not your weapon. I am not your monster. I am not your slave. I am my own. His words echoed across the canyon, carried by the wind, carried by the silence of enemies who no longer spoke. For the first time, the galaxy saw him not as worthless, not as trash, but as a choice. Yet, in the shadows above, deep inside, a hidden ship, voices whispered. If one human can raise a slave into hope,